This is Marguerite Impey, and I'm going to start with my teacher interview questions. These are related to both student and teacher IST standards, and I've already shared them on the forum, and they're quite clear and they're already there. I'm going to move on to the summary of teacher responses during the process of the interviews. All teachers were relatively comfortable using technology to support learning. Um, and the question of how to facilitate academic honesty came up and was answered by all. And they referenced Turnitin, which is a platform. Here it is. Students' work is uploaded onto the platform, and then it highlights areas which might be instances of plagiarism, and then we can look further into whether that is the case. They also referenced platforms like EasyBib, which help students do citations. And then we moved on to collaborative technology used for student research and engagement with the wider world. So there was a lot of people using Google Classroom, databases like Newsela and EBSCO, and this particular teacher here who featured videos of global artists and practitioners sharing ideas on Google Classroom for students to watch. And here is an example of that. These are some of the videos that she's uploaded for her students to have access to in Google Classroom, and she's found the right ones to do with her particular lesson. Also using Google Classroom and also another platform called Seesaw. There's another colleague, and Seesaw was featured with teachers asking how best some tools can reach students and or parents according to need and age group and allow for sharing and discussion. And here we see the student is uploading reading goals in Seesaw, and that can be shared with the parents. And the reading goals are based on the SAT scores, another digital tool that they use. Accommodations were put forward using SAT scores, audiobooks, and graphic tools. So this has all been sort of quite a clear, very positive thing. Some interesting observations on balance were also put forward because in response to looking at the pros and cons, it came up that maybe technology in some ways is not such a good thing, and we need to find a way to balance the positives, which are collaborative effects, the way that we can communicate better, the way that we have access to information and people globally that we never did, with hands-on teaching, which seems to kind of get lost in the wash a little bit. I'm going to move on to the lesson plan analysis, and this is a colleague's art lesson plan on curatorial practice to try and get students to understand how curators in the real world facilitate viewers' access to artwork, and it's an IB criteria within their studio work curriculum. So she started with asking students to share ideas before the classroom of what they thought of curatorship. And then she flipped the classroom, shared those YouTube videos that I showed earlier in the classroom for students to watch at home. And then they comment on those particular videos. They choose to comment on them in Google Classroom so they can then share their ideas with their peers, and then a discussion takes place in the actual classroom. And in the actual classroom, the students then take away what the discussion has brought up, and they go and write and draw in their journals, and then those ideas are scanned or photographed and uploaded again onto Google Classroom for sharing in the next class. And the idea of listening to global curators and taking notes before class discussion are all things within the ISTE standards, and I will include that in my documentation. Then finally, ManageBack came up as a tool, which I think was a very positive one, how she ended off the class, and there was a reflection that went on with peers, and that ManageBack assessment also gets shared with parents. Finally, I have brought in my own checklist to guide my own technology use. I've also used the IST standards, thinking about authentic learning, using technology authentically. Again, from my colleagues' comments, thinking about whether it's possible to balance the technology with hands-on learning, and looking at ethical practices, student feedback, and whether the access to the personal skills and digital tools is good. I think that the questionnaires and the responses and the lesson plan and then finally the checklist have all sort of fed into each other, um, and helped me to kind of understand a little bit more about how I can take away some of those ideas and use them in my own classroom.